we were eating dinner, and someone looks at me and says, James, you know what we like about you? I was like, no, tell me what you like about me. You're black, but you're not really like black. And I was taken aback. I was shocked. I didn't even know how to really respond to that because anyone that knows me knows that I'm black AF, right? Like everything about me is black. So now I'm questioning myself. I'm like, oh my God, am I not? My own blackness. But what you said triggered me too. The second thought that I had was, why is everybody else at this table shaking their head and nodding? Not one person said, that doesn't sound right. They all, it was almost as if I was accepted into their tribe, and I was happy to be accepted into their tribe, but it was like, oh, you're not really black. That's the reason why you're here in this room, sitting at this table. And although my career has taken off from that moment, I remember getting into the Uber and calling my wife. But I remember calling her saying, like, gosh, this was like a surreal moment. And it made me feel like I am unseen.
Let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go.
Need to help Black Dads. We're gonna dive into this. I am Carlos V. Spencer. We're here doing our Black Dad Unfiltered. I'm here with my guy,
Coach Rod. Again, always trying to change the narrative on black men and black fathers in particular. What we got on deck today, Los?
So today we're going to have a wonderful conversation. We brought in some beautiful people here, some SMEs, some subject matter experts. So what we do when we have conversations, we like to have a conversation where you feel like you're a fly on the wall, where you're just there in the midst of the conversation. But even when we do that, we want to bring in people who have an expertise in certain areas, so it's just not us saying that. So today on this first panel, we're going to be having a conversation about men and women in the workplace. What are the differences? Are there some similarities? What happens in the workplace when men are working in certain spaces? What happens with the women who are working in certain spaces? And we're going to dive into that conversation. But before we dive into that, we're going to go down the line here, have everyone introduce themselves. And as you're introducing yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your expertise, and anything else you'd like to share. I know you, Mel, but how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yes.
So my name is Dr. Melody Baker, emphasis on the doctor.
Come on, talk to me nice. That's earned.
It is earned.
Say it, say that.
And I only emphasize that for the whole reason of this panel, but I'll jump in and be efficient and quick and the other E that we mentioned. I'm a research scientist, and I founded Impact Stats. Some of the work that I'm responsible, I contributed to the new math requirements for Harvard University. I've written many different articles. I've been credited with influencing shifting math and modernizing it at the post-secondary level, and particularly, specifically, my work around calculus. I'll stop there.
All right. Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
Good morning, everybody. Will Green, advocate, consultant, educator. I started Tremonti Solutions, which is an educational consulting company. We focus on culturally relevant conflict in schools and in other places. I also work as assistant dean of community relations in UB Graduate School of Education. 30 years experience as a professional. So I have a lot to talk about around this matter.
All right. Does this work now?
Yes.
All right. My name is James Reddick. I am a proud father of two. I am a proud husband to my wife, who's here in the audience. I'm totally going to embarrass her right now. No, I think professionally, I'm in mergers and acquisitions. I specifically focus on human capital and those type of dynamics. I'm also a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the best fraternity that's there. So first, ice cold, and we'll leave it like that. All right, so that's me.
That's a lot to follow. Good morning, everybody. I'm Tom Albrick. I'm President and CEO of Goodwill of Western New York. I've had a bit of an eclectic career as an entrepreneur, also as in academia at the University of Buffalo. My office was right here next door for 12 years. And really enjoy this topic, enjoy learning and sharing about leadership. So I'm happy to be here.
Good morning, everyone. I am Keisha Alston. I am an academic counselor here at the Buffalo Education Opportunity Center, where I've been working for the last 17 years, changing lives, helping those obtain the goals that they're trying to obtain in life, just making their lives better. I am the proud mother of two beautiful young ladies, almost 21-year-old, and then my 10-year-old. Don't ask questions about the age gap. I think about that all the time. It's a great dynamic. I also am a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated because I like to give back to my community. I love service. I just love helping people in general, and I'm happy to be here.
All right. So I probably want to kick it off with a quick question, and this is to everyone. How have gender-based stereotypes shaped your own workplace experience, either positively or negatively?
Man, went out like that.
I mean, I'll
That's what
start.
I do. This is Coach Rod. I'm here to win.
I mean, so I'll start. So it is particularly a significant topic in my field because I study mathematics. And as we know, mathematics and particularly STEM, there is not a lot of women or women of color, period. So when you're in the room and you're talking, you're constantly having to legitimize like why you should even be there, why you should be in the room. And so, every time I show up, as a black woman with a black woman perspective. And I have to bring it every single time so that young black women, so that black girls will realize that this is a space for them and that they can be here, even though it's just one of us, because there needs to be more. And the other biggest challenge is definitely isolation. Because there's not a lot. So you're typically alone. So if you're not alone just because of your race, you're definitely alone because of your gender.
So, go ahead. Yeah, I think chime in with a similar experience being a black male in education. So throughout my years of experience in education, and I mean at multiple levels, 7th through 12th grade, higher ed, I always find myself among limited company. And it's interesting because you ever heard the term walking on eggshells? So as a black man in those spaces where there's very few of us, I feel like I have to mitigate how folks perceive me. Because usually the general perception is I'm going to be aggressive or I don't belong there. So I'm conscious of how I show up in terms of providing input in certain areas. I think the interesting thing, something that helped me along the way, because I really don't hide from my blackness. I don't know how to. I went to public school, 53, one of the first community schools in Buffalo, black principal, black teachers. It was a community school, and then I went to Hutch Tech, and it was an early experience in going into a space in which you really were not welcome. So I learned how to navigate those spaces, and I learned how to beat folks at their own game, no matter how they try to play it.
Now, Will, you just look like you crush some eggshells. I mean, your personality and everything, like, I'm here. That just seemed like it.
But that's how God made me.
Yes, sir.
That's how God made me. If folks always go off of perception. So I can't concern myself with how people perceive me. But when the opportunity arises to demonstrate my expertise, I make sure I lay it down. And then you leave them there dumbfounded. Then they got to deal with that, not me.
Can I say, when I first started at the EOC, I was in awe because the executive director, the associate executive director, the supervisor of counseling, and I believe enrollment management were all black women. So I was like, wow, like they running this whole show. And I remember mentioning that to someone at the beginning, and they were like, well, all women are running everything. Do they get anything done? Isn't it emotional? How are the meet? And I'm like, no, these women are doing their thing. Like instructional services, everybody who worked here was a black woman, and they were all in positions of power and leadership. And the person who said it to me, I'm like, no, I'm telling you, I work there. And these women get things done. But it was just the idea that someone thought because so many women were in leadership that nothing was getting done or things couldn't get done as efficiently. And I was like, come spend a day at my job. Come spend a week. You'll see that these women are getting things done. So that's an experience that I've had with that.
So I want you to share, but I also want to put a twist, right?
Yeah.
Because Will had mentioned that he's conscious of sometimes I have to almost shape the way people are going to perceive me at some point until you just own it. I want to put that, because I've never asked that before, like when you go someplace, are you also concerned about, okay, I have to be concerned about how they're going to perceive me?
Yeah, I think, so a lot of what I'm going to share today is my witnessing, not my experiencing. Because I will say, I don't experience a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. I witness them, and as a leader, how can I insert myself where it's appropriate to watch out for biases, to help people navigate them, to coach people? But I can't say that I experience them. Maybe in academia, there's some bias around educations and levels, but not the type of bias we're talking about here. When I was in academia, I often had women leaders, so I have great respect for women leaders. A lot of women lead in academia, but where I see a lot of bias, I'll just use Goodwill as an example today, with women is our VP of operations does all of our construction, all of our trucking, all of our logistics, is extremely good at her job, but it is almost constantly when she's in a room with men, if we're going over a construction contract, they're talking to me, not talking to her, all the time. So redirecting, this doesn't happen once. Obviously, it's I believe it's mostly unconscious, maybe not always, but I see this very frequently when it comes to, well, that's a man's realm for construction, or trucking is a man's realm. So I see it constantly in that aspect. And how do I react to that? A lot of coaching, a lot of trying not to jump in, but trying to help navigate the conversation and letting those individuals that are experiencing it own it and learn how to react to it too.
I have a unique job that's very difficult at times to articulate. A lot of times in my fraternity, there's a joke that says I'm either like Tommy from Barton, right? And I don't really have a job, or that I am a member of a clandestine service here in the United States. But I promise neither of those two things are true. One of the aspects of my job is that I get to help companies shape how their organizations are structured. I help create policies that help a company attract, retain, and develop employees. So I'm very much on the front line when it comes to seeing the intersection between bias, racial bias, gender bias, and how it plays off in things like compensation, how it plays off in things about mentorship, who gets promoted, who doesn't get promoted. And so my hope is that as we keep going through this panel, I'm able to share that uniqueness to everybody and to share how I'm able to navigate those spaces, yet maintaining my Blackness. And so I wanted to make sure that everyone heard, get that out of the way so that, Carlos knows this, but he was the one that kept telling everybody that I am a member of the CIA, of which, again, if I was, I would not have said that or made a joke about it. But
look, if you ever seen James walk in the room with a suit on, he looks like the mob boss who don't take people out, but he tell people. That one right there.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you for the introductions. Yes. I'm going to share two anecdotes, right? Because my role today on this panel is to be the employee. Because, again, I don't want to stay up here. I want to speak to those who experience. I'll tell two professional stories, same organization, right? And, again, this is a lot about the dynamics between men, women, men. We can include culture into this. I worked at a very large nonprofit in the Western Hemisphere, and I worked in management, right? And I shared a little bit of the story. Two things happened. I had a manager who was older than me, Caribbean. I'm Caribbean. So we're both black, He's older, right? I'm walking to the building. I had a hoodie on. I had my suit on, but I had a hoodie on because the weather. Stops me and says, "You can't wear that coming into the building." I said, "What?" He said, "You can't come to the building with that hoodie on." He said, "Do we understand each other?" And as Carlos knows, I'm from Brooklyn. So when he said, "Do we understand each other?" I said, "We don't. Help me understand now." Because this conversation is going to go left, right? But I bring that story up because I was young and I didn't understand what was happening to me. I didn't understand what this is called. And I know there's a lot of people, same job. And again, I'm dealing with grants from the government. I won't name the company. Now I had a female supervisor, director. I had hurt my knee. I shared the story. And workers' comp, whatever, I was out for maybe 2-3 weeks. Came back. And she said, that's all it was. Same thing happened to my dog. And my dog was fine the next day. Again, I'm a young professional, so I'm going to speak for I was a young professional. I said, what? Did this woman just compare me to her dog? This is the part I'm going to throw out. And is everyone okay with this where I work? No one else sees a problem with this? No one's going to come support me, defend me? I'm on my own here with this? That's a very defeated feeling because these are your leaders doing this. So I share that story to tell you where my mind is in this. But again, if anyone has their own experiences, when did you know how to address it if it were to happen again? I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah, I want to come after that one. So one of the largest deals that I was responsible for was this merger, an acquisition that Microsoft did for Nokia phones. And so after this year and a half of flying from Atlanta to Seattle to Los Angeles and making that triangle every week, we had a team dinner, like a celebration dinner. I am the only African American in the space, in the room, in the building, and I've been working hand in hand with these men and women for the entire, 18 months or so. We were eating dinner, and someone looks at me and says, "James, you know what we like about you?" I was like, "No, tell me what you like about me." "You're black, but you're not really like black. And I was taken aback. I was shocked. I didn't even know how to really respond to that because anyone that knows me, that knows that I don't work for the CIA, knows that I'm black AF, right? Like everything about me is black. So now I'm questioning myself. I'm like, oh my God, am I not? My own blackness. But what you said triggered me too. The second thought that I had was, why is everybody else at this table shaking their head and nodding? Not one person said, that doesn't sound right. They all, it was almost as if I was accepted into their tribe, and I was happy to be accepted into their tribe, but it was like, oh, you're not really black. That's the reason why you're here in this room, sitting at this table. And although my career has taken off from that moment, I remember getting into the Uber and calling my wife. She was my girlfriend there. I was trying to make her my wife, let's just say that. But I remember, mission accomplished, for sure. But I remember calling her saying, gosh, this was like a surreal moment. And it made me feel like I am unseen. My blackness, who is part of me, is unseen. And what you guys do see is James, and I'm happy that you see James, but you also have to understand that I represent blackness, and I represent black male excellence.
Hey, click the like button, click the subscribe, hit some comments, or some information or some questions that you might have. Click the notifications bell so you can be notified every time we have new content that drops. Let's go, let's grow, let's get it.
We'll talk a little bit about that when we get to my specific question. But that was just a traumatic, growing moment in my professional life that I'll never forget. And when you told that story, it triggered it for
And
me.
you said that was after 18 months. This is not just a couple weeks.
No. This is 18 months of 15 to 17-hour work days. I mentioned I was living in Atlanta at the time, flying to Seattle, where Microsoft is, flying to Los Angeles, where Nokia had a large presence there, right? So it was like this. It was this grind, right, where I got close to them, they got close to me, but they still didn't see me. They just saw, oh, he speaks so well, right? He's the black face that we can put in front to show these things, and they're playing me and I'm playing them because I got the check, but still, you still don't see me. You still don't see that I went to Morehouse. You still don't see that my grandfather was the first African American executive at Hewlett Packard back in the Bay Area, right? These things, all these things that make up me, that help define my blackness, and I know you thought that as well. I mean, see that as well in your experiences too. Man, it was heavy, and so I'm happy to share that a little bit later. But yeah.
You know, and I want to come a bit from the female perspective. I think that it is extremely challenging as a leader, as a woman, because, and as a black woman, that is, because unfortunately there's a perception. And number one, there's never enough room for all of the minorities, so there's a lot of competition. And the competition is really with women, and not just black women, but black women and white women. One of the greatest challenges I had was right after George Floyd, where people started to see themselves as this, essentially the savior complex, where they want to, specifically, white women, they start to see themselves. So then they decide, the way I'm going to address this is I'm going to save you. And now, and when I don't have nobody to save, it becomes a struggle.
What does save look like? Help me.
What saving looks like is, I'm going to bring you and I'm going to put you on my team. And so this exactly happened. I'm going to make you the face of my organization. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bust down doors for you. We're going to open up. When people slam the door shut in your face, I'm going to stand there and make sure they don't slam the door in your face. And I'm like, I've been doing this for a while. The red carpet is kind of rolled out for me. I'm really sorry to tell you that. And when they can't open those doors and they get there and they realize, wow, you're just as respected as I am, then they don't have a place anymore. And so that was a big struggle for me when people wanted to save me and I became more called on than they did. And then you begin to upstage them. And the one thing that I make it similar to is that the wolf pack. So if everyone knows, wolf packs acts much like families. And in society, what people don't realize is that in a wolf pack, a lot of people believe like a wolf pack falls apart when they lose their alpha. There's two really important wolves in the wolf pack, your alpha and the omega. The omega is the bottom dog. They're the dog that is the scapegoat. They're the one that eats last. And so a lot of people believe that the wolf pack falls apart when they lose their alpha. That's not the case because the beta takes over. A wolf pack will fall completely apart if they lose their omega.
Wow.
Do you know why? Because with them being the bottom dog, at any point, somebody else can become the bottom. And if you put them in that position, that wolf pack falls completely apart. And if you in society as a black woman is considered the omega, and you lose that spot, everybody, so who's next? Everybody's wondering, am I next? So we need people in our society to maintain their rank and their position in the way that they perceive them. And the moment I can't open a door for you, then we're equal footing. And then they're then concerned that they're going to be the bottom dog.
So, Will, before, I just want to, I'd like to summarize. So you said a lot. Out of that, one thing that I heard, or my mind translated, is sometimes dynamics begin to objectify you.
Absolutely.
Dehumanize you and turn you to an object or a possession, right? And that's that's a woman-to-woman dynamic across cultures, right? All right, I just wanted to see if that I heard correctly, Will, and then I'll hand it to Keisha.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, and really, I'm sure the folks who are listening to us on this panel, what comes to mind for me, and I've been thinking about this a lot, like coming towards the end of my professional career and about to branch out and do things for myself, is this notion of professionalism, right? When you hear your experiences and you hold up what happened to you, clearly that is not professional. But how many times are we held accountable for things that are much less egregious than that and called unprofessional?
Ooh, come on, that's a word.
I think what has happened is, for me, I so much value the community I grew up in. I'm talking about an area that was completely war-torn in terms of drugs being introduced into the community, in terms of lack of opportunity. But the young men that I hung out with, because dads wasn't around so much, made sure that you don't do this because you have these opportunities. Now, they had similar skill sets, capacity, and ability, but they didn't go to a Hutch Tech. No disrespect to South Park.
I wasn't even going to
No
say nothing.
disrespect.
We're going to leave it alone.
So what I carry with me as a result of going to Public School 53, having black principals, having black teachers, living in a black community in which I was loved and respected and honored by the young men in that community, is I carry that with me wherever I go. So there is no separation of my blackness for me to then push in and say, oh, I need to be more professional. I think the question we need to ask is being professional a negation of your blackness? That's the key question. That's the key question. Because if being professional is a negation of your blackness, then we will never achieve the things that we want to achieve for our communities and the communities we come from in those spaces.
I mean, I'm not going to say much, but I mean, if you think about it, that's such a great point. Everything associated with our culture, our blackness, when it comes down to professionalism, is considered unprofessional. Yep. You know, when it comes down to our hair, black women, we've got to think, you know, is this a professional hairstyle? We can't wear the hair that grows naturally out of our head and come in because it's considered unprofessional, and not just to other people, but to other black people. And don't let you come in there as a black woman to another black woman and don't have your hair done, because we always, unfortunately, represent each other. So from our hair to the way that we talk, to the way that everything about our culture is synonymous, unfortunately, with being unprofessional.
Mm-hmm. And there's historical context to that.
I want to get Keisha involved. Tom.
Let's see here.
Okay, so my experience actually was here, and it's a male-female dynamic. So we ended up getting a new supervisor who was male to be over a staff that was all female. He came in immediately. Now, I will give them, he had a lot of experience, but EOC is a special place. It's a special population that we deal with, and there's just certain things that don't correlate to like higher ed or, you know, UB's campus. It's a different breed. So while he had the experience, he did not have the experience of working with this population. But he was working with a staff that had anywhere between 10 and 17 years of working in this population, but refused to listen to anything because he was in charge, he was the boss, and it was his way or the highway. We got a union. It don't work that way. There's certain things that you can't do, that you can't say, and as a union rep, I would make him aware of these things. He did not like that. He did not like for me to speak up. He did not like for me to say what was or was not, what was appropriate or not appropriate. And I ended up getting pulled into meetings with him on too many occasions. On certain occasions where he told me to sit down and be quiet, to not talk when he's talking. Some of the things he would say to me, I say, my father doesn't even speak to me like that. And if he did, my father know me. I'm not even going to listen to my daddy. And I love you. Carlos know my daddy. My daddy's a preacher. My daddy's a outstanding person, but he knows his daughter. He knows who he raised me to be, also Caribbean. So I don't take no mess when it comes down to it. He and I went at it a lot, and there were moments where he really took me out of my character, and I didn't like that. And I had to talk to my mom. I had to talk to my dad. I had to talk to other colleagues. And what it came down to was I had to pray on that. I had to pray and say, you've put in your time here in individual is not going to take that from you, because he put me in a position to be suspended, unpaid for a month from my job, and I had just purchased a home. And so I'm sitting there thinking, how I'm going to pay my mortgage because I'm not about to get paid for a month. How do I approach this the correct way? So I did end up going to my union, and I was supported. That didn't happen, thank God. Prayer works. It kept me calm. Therapy works, because I was talking to my therapist about it, and she was navigating me through that, how to deal with him, how to take different approaches, because my approach is to, if you go low, I'm going to hell. That's me. I'm growing. I'm growing. Listen,
I can feel the heat
I will
coming down
tell
here.
you, I have grown a lot in the last couple of years. A big part of that, I will say, is joining a sorority where, I mean, it's a lot of women. You got to learn how to deal with different personalities, but you got to also understand sometimes you got to take the emotion out of something to get things done. And I'm an emotional creature, but I've learned that if I stop and take a minute and let the emotion come out of it, and that's with work, that's with my kids, that's with relationships, that's with my parents, I do better because I bring the emotion out and I can be rational about things. So I started to approach the situation rationally. I'm going to use what I have, my union, support, prayer, my daddy, my mama, whoever I could get to navigate me through that. And it ended up working out so that I didn't lose any money. I lost a couple vacation days, but I'll take that because for certain things, I could have handled it better. I could have been the bigger person. And the dynamic changed after that. He's no longer my supervisor. We can work together. I can be the bigger person because we still have to work together. But taking that approach of just saying, what do I need to do? Because I'm not going to change him. He is who he is. I have to change my approach to dealing with him. And by doing that, it just made things a lot better. So I'm glad I got through that, and I can look back on it now and be like, dang, I didn't think I would get through that. But, like, God will get you through anything. And I believe that, like, just give him time. It's going to be in his time. And, you just got to be patient. And the way he teaches you patience is to put you through something where you got to wait for it. Like, you just got to do it. So.
It's offering time. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go.
I want to hear from you, Tom, and then after that, I have a question. But you had a story you want to share?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to share so much great learning and information coming out here. And I just want to say, we'll come back to it, I think, later, but the whole saving thing, nobody wants to be saved. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I was thinking about some research out of Harvard by a professor called Summer Jackson, who was doing research on microaggressions and looking at it a little bit differently to say, the reaction is, I am sick of this. Like, I don't want this happening to me anymore. And she did some research that showed if we assume that most people, not all people, most people are good people, and what they're doing is unconscious, it's a great opportunity to ask more questions and to teach people and help educate people about what you're feeling, how you're feeling. Now, again, as I said earlier, never experienced it, but I thought that research, and this was research, showed that it can change people. It can change people how they think. That being said, as I hear the emotion in these responses and comments, that's not that easy to do when you're sick of experiencing it. I can hear that and I can see it. But I just thought I would add that. Like, how do we turn it into maybe inquiry to teach somebody? And again, not easy, but just something I thought of as I was sitting here.
So, Los, and I want to follow that up, James, because here we have, and I think a decent amount, I know we got some young people in here too, have felt that way. This is my supervisor. They hold my life in their hands, metaphorically speaking. My ability to pay for this, my ability to move forward. I have, it's this cognitive dissonance, this tension within me. From someone who's running an entire organization, and I'm going to piggyback to you, James, because you have HR policy. Like, how do you create an environment? How does someone like Keisha, myself, James, Dr. Melody, like what are our avenues? How do we actually go to someone, believe they care, and believe something is gonna actually change that allows me as a man to be okay? Because I've had a lot of female leadership, and we'll talk about my experiences with that. Mostly positive, but I've had enough that's like, whoa, I can't even talk to you. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think about this a lot, and so you talk about power imbalance, right? What I think about as a leader, I can be the one creating that power imbalance. It's because I'm at the top, right? So what we do at Goodwill is, one, try to make sure people are heard. So I'll do listening sessions with throughout the organization without managers present. We do skip level interviews, so anybody that reports to me, I will once a year sit with their team. They're allowed to talk about, say anything. I think regular meeting cadences where we're giving opportunity for people to know what the organization is doing, where we're going. I think those are all important about trying to create a culture where people feel safe, that they can ask questions, and that they can expect that they will get some follow-up when they do that, right? And we can talk about HR, which somebody else can maybe get into. Sure, there's the whole structure and legal structure of HR, but there has to be a way for people when their immediate supervisor, they're not getting what they need, where do they go next? To your point of not knowing what to do or where to go, and then having to kind of navigate that all by yourself. That should be within the organization.
If it is not in the DNA of the leaders of a company, it will never change. There's no amount of structure that we can create, policy. It has to be the person. The person has to be open to learning, right? Most people are not, including ourselves. Everything we do, everything I do, I'll speak for myself. Everything I do, I'm 100% right and they're wrong, right?
You sound like a few people in this audience that I know.
Yeah.
Talking about my lady, by the way.
If the leaders, if the founders of a corporation, if the CEO at his or her core do not actually believe in things like equity, believe in things and creating safe spaces, there's nothing we can do. That's just the harsh truth, okay? So there are some of the tools that we have at our disposal is this. Number one, I have these James rules when it comes to HR. One of them is that labor is mobile, which means if you're in a space and you're in an environment where that is not going to change, leave. Go find another company. Don't believe in the scarcity principle. Believe that there are other organizations that will see your value. But trying to fight that fight, we're not going to do it. We saw that, or we're seeing this right now with when we had George Floyd, and oh my God, everybody and their mom was trying to create a DEI organization, roles. So many of my peers were jumping to roles and saying, hey, let's come be the chief diversity officer or focus on DEI policy. Winds change, new presidents come in. All my friends are now unemployed that were on the DEI space. So labor is mobile, jump, change. Second thing is we all have to check our own biases that we have and recognize that they're there. It doesn't mean that we're evil people, and I don't think that everyone that was at that table that I shared are racist or wrong. They just don't know. And sometimes we use the word ignorance as a weapon, but it actually means you're unaware that you have these things. So yes, it is an opportunity to educate. And yes, it is exhausting to always have to be the person to educate. Those two things can be true at the same time. But we have to endure, which is my second James. law, axiom, or whatever when it comes to HR. Like, we have to endure. We have to find a way to have the energy, to have the focus, to maintain, to keep fighting that fight by standing up, by saying, hey, what did you mean by that? Hey, let me expose you to different kinds of books or podcasts or TED Talks, or let's just come hang out at my fraternity or sorority, right? To be able to experience and be around other African American men and women to help you with your unconscious bias. If you're racist, I can't do anything about that, right? But if we go with the assumption that most people are good and want to be better, that's how you do it.
But can I say something real quick? So I think one of the challenges is, so all of us up here are survivors. Like, what I'm hearing are stories of like surviving. And there's this idea of survivorship bias that really creates and maintains this system of injustice. I'll give you an example. So World War II was almost lost because the fighter jets were being shot down constantly. And what they decided to do is study all of the jets that were, the pilots that came back that were flying. What they looked at is where the bullet holes were going. And they started reinforcing those areas on the plane. They're looking at the jets. And they continued to lose the war. And then one statistician, I'm a statistician, by the way, one statistician said, why are we looking at the survivors? Why aren't we looking at the ones who did not make it? So they then studied all the planes that were shot down, and they realized that it's getting shot near the engine, or it's getting shot near the oil, or it's getting shot here. And then they started reinforcing the areas of the fighter jets that were shot down, and that's how they won the war. So the problem is we're only looking at the folks who survived. We're not looking at the ones who did not make it. And if we look at the ones who don't make it and reinforce those folks, it would be a whole lot more survivors. I'll stop there.
I'll drop your mic for you if you want. I'll say this too, and to your point, Mel, survivors, and appreciate you all being up here, being strong. Like, somebody got to keep being strong. Somebody has to overachieve. Because I'm sure we've been in rooms where you can't be baseline. You have to be better. Does that make sense? I remember working for the New York State Police, and I was one of the first blacks ever to be the president of that class. And so, long story short, I came in with the second part of the class, and so the other part of the class was just the majority. So it's 190 of us, it's like 130 of them, pretty much pitting us against each other. And I was in the room with some other people who didn't look like me, and we were speaking to the whole organization, and they had to vote for who they want to be president. My roommate said to me, they don't want to vote for you. But if they don't vote for you, it's going to be obvious why they didn't vote for you. I said, wow. So we have to be better than good so that if we're done wrong, it is obvious that we're being done wrong. So I just want to commend you all for something that Dr. Bell just said, that we have to go above and beyond and understand that that's the calling that comes with what we're called to do.
And Carlos, I want to say back to my situation that it didn't stop with me. A couple of other staff members had to deal with it, but they had me to say, this is what I did. Yep. And so it stopped earlier for them. They didn't have to go through, being written up and sent to campus and all of those things. And a couple of them said that they were grateful because they thought it was just in my head for a while. They thought, oh no, but he don't treat me like that. He don't do that to me. He don't. Wow. And then when it started happening to them, it's like, oh, well, you were right. What do we do? Well, this is what I did. I prayed a lot, but here's the other routes that you can take so that it doesn't get as far with you. And I will say that they were grateful for that. So I took one for the team to be able to make it better for them.
See? Studying the one who didn't survive.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Doc?
I want to jump in on this because I don't know, and I'm just kind of like zoning and listening to what everybody's saying and formulating a whole different branch, so to speak. But this notion of excellence, right? And it does play into what you said about addressing it in the moment. And I've picked up some skills along the way. When somebody says something that gives me that pause, that like shocks my system, like I can't believe this fool just said that. Somebody taught me a long time ago, asked them the question, well, what did you mean by this when you said that? And it flips it. And then they have to start thinking about what they said. And they're like, oh crap, I said something highly unprofessional.
Will, before you even finish, how many of us feel if we ask that question, that puts us in trouble at work? Right? I just want to drop that there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's a way to do things. Like I learned a long time ago, sometimes you got to separate everybody from the space, and then you just say it real low and quiet.
Yeah. Okay.
But the point I wanted to make is this, right? This idea of excellence in professionalism. How great would it be to go to your job and just have to focus on being excellent in your job as opposed to being excellent in the eyes of others just to belong?
Ooh.
I'll say this in the space of that. I feel it. I feel what you're saying, right? Right? I feel it. And Will, you may jump back in on this. I've heard this. I'm going to give a sports analogy. You don't have to watch sports, but you'll understand it. They say that with sports, let's say football in particular, there's a level playing field. And so since the playing field is level, meaning that you can play or you can't,
Right.
who rises to the top? When the playing field is level, right? So to your point, Will, is it level? I don't even think it's a fair question to even ask come out of my mouth, right? But when we see in a space that it is level, whoever can play, can play. Black, white, woman, male. If you can play, you can play. If you can't, you can't. But the playing field is level there. And I think to your point, and give me clarity, Will, if I'm getting any wrong at all, the playing field's not level.
So that football analogy is crazy. Well, I played college ball. It was Division III, but I saw players who were clearly not as good as the player who was on the bench, but because of certain aspects of who they were, the other player got to play. And then all of a sudden, you let this player in, and now he's like player of the year for the entire conference. Like, now we only got that for 1 year because y'all wanted to put this other cat in. But I'll say this.
I hear you, Will. I hear you.
And people talk about this a lot. I've heard this a few times. They're like, man, you know, they say black don't crack, right? It's like, well, imagine if we didn't have to carry all the stress and the pressure of everyday life. And I really hold on to this notion of that white supremacy and the whole idea that black people have to fight to belong does damage to the final product for all of our fields. For all of our fields. Like, if you just accepted us for who we are and we can come into work with our sneakers unlaced and our shirts untucked and our hair nappy and know that nobody gave a damn, we could give all our energy to this work. And what could we produce in that space? What could we produce if you let me not have to think about what I look like, how I speak, how I am, and just do the work? That's what we missing out on. That's what's being missed out on, to be excellent on a global scale. Because these other countries that have homogeneous cultures is kicking our you-know-whats. So if you just embrace our diversity and let us come in these spaces and be who we are, you don't know what we could achieve.
I think to your point, and you, James, unless you jump in, it goes to the black dad. And I think, Rob, we've said this statement before, which goes to this fighting in that space. You hear the term, well, why didn't the father fight more for custody? Why didn't he fight more for time? And then somebody else came back and said, why did he have to fight in the first place?
Right.
And in that workspace, I think I hear you saying the similar, well, why do we have to fight? Well, maybe if he'd have fought more, it's like, well, why do I got to fight in the first place? How come I can't just show up and do my work?
I was just going to say that I do agree with you. It's going to drip in nuance.
I hear a butt coming.
Right.
My butt's dripping in nuance. It's not realistic. In 2025, we will not be able to walk into a space how you mentioned. Nappy head, of which I don't have benefit of hair anymore. Right? Shoes unlaced, not looking professional. I think if we start our own organization, sure, but we're going to run into these barriers that are there. Still got to go get a small business loan. You still got to go into these spaces where there are barriers that are unsaid and unspoken rules. And so I think on top of giving people the strength and the self-confidence that's necessary to survive, I think we also need to give them the unspoken rules, the cheat sheets, the things that are behind that are unsaid, not because it is unfair, but here's the reality. When you go to a restaurant at these kind of events, you're not there to eat dinner. Even though it's a dinner meeting, you're not there to eat dinner. You're not, these are what you can eat and you should not, things you should eat and should not eat. And yes, it would be great if you could order oysters or you could have smelly, food that has, a pungent smell, but you're gonna get knocked. You could choose still to do it, and I still wanna make sure that you have it, but I at least need to teach you the rules of the game.
Could I add a but?
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay. East side of Buffalo, there's a group of folks that are doing quite well that have adhered to none of that. They have done it for themselves the way they want to do it based on their culture and their religion, and they are multi-millionaires. They do not send their children to the schools. They do not go to those restaurants. They did the work in the community, made it theirs, built their own, and their kids do not have to adhere to those things.
Yeah, I'll say this to both great points, man. I love this. I love it because I know that even after this, we're going to see these two big fellas shake hands, laugh, and have a great time. And I'm going to get out the way. I'm going to get my little self out the way, too. I love it because there's a beauty of power of dynamics and conversations. I hear what both of you saying. I think you both hear what you're saying. In what settings? James, I hear 100% what you're saying. I'm a consultant. There are spaces I got to wear my suit and tie, and I'm going to do that. Because if I show up without the suit and tie, I might not get my check. And we're not doing that, Dr. Mel. But to your point, Will, I have a friend who's a consultant who built his own business in Washington, D.C. He flies me out there. I got my African Senator on. I got my J's on. I got my ripped jeans. I come in, I kill it, and I get my check. So it depends on probably the organization you're with. I think in that setting, James, just a very great point that, man, don't be going up in there telling me some why when you didn't show up the right way you're supposed to show up. And Will, to your point, there are some people who have done it on their own, because my buddy did it on his own and has built a successful six-figure company. And I know whenever I go there, I ain't got to put no suit and tie on. I just got to come to work.
This is fascinating because this was a relationship conference, and now, now we're changing entire organization policies, right?
Good.
To that point, I'll touch on that, and then I do want to bring back some of the gender dynamic into this, if you will. As you know, as I told you behind, I work for a very prominent organization, and I have a leadership role, and I always had this tension within me, right? Because again, my story hopefully resonates with you. Caribbean, I learned English, right? English is not my first language. I'm a product of immigrant parents, and I always had an issue with my complexion, my ethnicity, and my gender. Right, all through to my professional career, right? And so this means a lot to me. So I would have a suit and tie on, and then one day I said, you know what, I'm not gonna do this anymore because I wear earrings. Yeah, I'm gonna wear my earrings to work today. I'm gonna twist my hair up. What I started realizing was, and this is almost to what Will was saying, when I open my mouth, you're going to understand that I'm the real deal. And we can work or we cannot, right? And I realized if I didn't start making my own stance, being mobile, being willing to be mobile, no one said a single thing to me about my earrings. No one said a single thing about my hair. I stopped wearing suits. So this is how I actually show up to multi-million-dollar events, minus the sneakers. Right, because I'm still not there yet. But to some point, I had to find the environment that allowed me to do it. But I had to, as a man, decide what's more important to me to some extent. Always hiding who I am, or being comfortable to say, or brave enough to be like, this is who I am and what I want to be. And I gotta find a place that allows me to show up like this, or else I'm almost killing myself. But I want to go to the gender dynamics. I'm gonna share another experience, and this is gonna be uncomfortable, but we're vulnerable on the show. So what I've noticed in my professional life, my female supervisors have always been my best supervisors. Always. Because they've always given me opportunities to expand. But I got to a certain point where I'm now seeing...
You want to do this? I'm about to help you. You sure you want to go where you about to go?
Is this God talking to you right now?
Go ahead. No. It's Carlos. Go ahead,
But
Coach Brown.
what I am experiencing now,
Yeah.
because the game is different, everyone's in power, it's very tough to communicate professionally with the opposite sex now. Right? Fun fact in business, there's a study that was said, whenever you ask a woman why, their immediate response is something is wrong. If you ask a man why, he's going to tell you why. Why did you make that decision? Why? Did you think something's wrong with it? A man will probably be like, I made this decision because X, Y, Z. And I started seeing some of this data play out, like this dynamic of, I'm trying to work with you, I'm trying to lead you, I'm trying to have you hear me while you're leading me, and now I'm seeing all the things, emotions, your own lived experiences coming into this. How do we manage that? I bring that up to anyone here who wants to address that. So I feel like a lot of people may have lived this, and I have to speak to these people's experiences.
I mean, so I definitely think that is a challenge, especially as a Black woman, because I mean, I go back to that whole Omega scenario. You're constantly, and like we talked on this panel, you're constantly fighting. And if we just touch on the appearance thing, I mean, even gender-wise, it's not the same for women. We can't just show up because, number one, people are less threatened by women, so they're going to say what is on the top of their head to you about your outfit. And then on top of that, when it comes to my profession, they're paying for the whole package. So they're paying for the melody with the suit, with the research background. They're paying for the way that I look. And unfortunately, I'm a token. And to fit into that space, sometimes I have to get there and then shape it and then change it and then bring in the different people. But just going back to the gender thing, I have seen that, especially when it comes down to Black women and Black men. And the biggest problem is it's because there's this feeling that there's not enough room. There's only space for one. Like if you think about affirmative action, or these opportunities where they'll say, okay, well, this 5% or 10% of the opportunities have to go to minorities. What we get caught up on is we're fighting for that 5 or 10%. Why are we not looking at the 100%? We're in there looking that we can only fit in this very small space because they only have room for one of us. So we have to fight. And because men are typically considered leaders when they get up, when they wake up in the morning, you know, they select themselves as lead. When I heard you, you know, the first thing you said is, you know, I'm trying to lead you. Why y'all always trying to lead somebody? You know, can we lead ourselves? Can we collaborate? You know what I'm saying? But there is that dynamic, and it is a constant fight. And so as a woman in this field, I have to say I've been successful in showing up in the way like you talked about, like not being aggressive, not fitting into that Black angry woman stereotype, you know, showing up in a way, and it's tough. You know, and my white colleagues, when they say, you want to hang out after work, I'm like, no, absolutely. I've been on all day. You know, I can't do this forever. I need to go home where I can listen to Tupac, you know, walk around, you know, twerk a little bit, because that's how I get my, that's how I decompress, you know, and y'all wouldn't understand that. I love to use double negatives. Like, I be thinking, I love that. There's nothing more that I like
Dr.
to
Mel.
do is use double negatives. And when I get around my people, that's what we be doing. Did you hear the double negative?
Yep, that's what we be doing.
And so we have to show up regularly in a different way. And I think even for Black women, it is difficult. And when it comes down to Black men, we're constantly looking at that 5%, that 10% of, you know, that's left for you. And they have tricked us into believing that that is the only space we fit in, where we should be looking at the 100.
And Keisha, I see you here, and you don't have to elaborate too far, but Mel, so you said that even after work, you still got to be on. So it's like, we on work, you want to hang out after work? No.
And one of the most frustrating things is when people have a certain perception of you, or that you're less than, or you're not as capable, they become very unprofessional. They like legit, like we're in a business meeting. I'm in a business meeting doing a huge deal with a brand new organization, and we have to go through the building and wear hard hats. And this white woman who doesn't even know me, and I'm getting ready to put my hard hat on. She's like, "Isn't that a wig anyways? Can't you take it off?" I was like, "Heifer, you ain't never seen." I stopped myself, but I was about to say something. But and then
She's
they
about
wanted
to get a double negative.
She was about to get another.
Bunch of double negatives.
Like my homegirl here said, when they go low, I will get lower.
Yeah.
When they want to touch,
She's going to hell.
she's gonna.
That's what Keisha said.
She's going to hell. When they reach out to touch my hair, or is that your real hair? Wait a minute. Can you get a little closer? Are those your real teeth? Are those your real breasts? Can I touch your breasts? No. Exactly. Stay away from me. Okay, I'm sorry. That was aggressive.
I felt that. I felt all that.
It's Saturday.
It's okay. It's okay. No, it's good.
Going to Coach Rod, you said when men are asked why, they just say it, right? A study said.
She said study. Now you see, see that's
okay.
what I'm trying to say to you.
Thank you for clarifying
Coach
that.
Rod, I said
I
you
wasn't coming
sure?
for you.
Make
said, are
sure
you
a
sure?
study, right?
A study.
Because I'm a mathematician as well, and we look at data.
A scientific study said when men are asked why, they say why. When women are asked why, it's like, did I do something wrong? So as a child, I couldn't ask my parents why. They told me to do something, and if I was to say why, I wouldn't be on this panel right now. I wouldn't be alive. My daddy would have, What you mean? So when people ask, I think I've come to be like, when people ask me why, it's like, why are you questioning my authority or what I've come to say, this is what I want to have happen, right? So then once again, I do become the angry black woman because I'm like, well, why are you questioning me? Like, if this is what I said I want done or this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done. And it's crazy that dynamic is like that, but that's how I was raised. Like, don't ask me why. If my kid, and I'm old school parent, like I'm not old, I'm just old school. But it's a lot of things that I took from my parents, right? Because they were good parents. They raised 3 children. They both educated, both have master's degrees. All of their kids have graduated from college. So I think they did a pretty good job. Me being one of those kids. That's what they taught me. So if my parents taught me that, now with my kids, it's the same thing. I wish my child, either one of them, would ask me why when I tell them to do something. Just do it. So I don't know if I bring that to the workplace as well, but it comes from, my background and how I was raised. Like, don't ask me that.
She said, don't ask her why. I know we got to wrap up. You got something you going to?
So
Go ahead.
again, I wish we had more time, and I do want to bring Tom back in.
This has been good.
But when we talk about the relationships, one of the things I'm trying to drive home here is it's not just man versus woman, right? It can be man versus man. Culture plays a huge part in this as well, right? Because I am collaborative. So for me, it's you come up with the idea. My job is to help figure out how we're going to execute it, right? Get the resources. But I'm glad you shared that. But Tom, I want to bring you into this because you've been pretty quiet.
You think?
So, right? So, again, there's a lot of leaders here, so I want everyone to chime in. So when
we got to be mindful.
I see the time.
All right.
So if someone had issues where they were experiencing any type of dynamic at work where they felt like their peers created an environment, I'm not going to use the word hostile because we know there's avenues for that. We're talking about the subliminal stuff where, let's use Dr. Melody's scenario like, man, this woman just said this. Or I say, hey, what are some concrete things that people can do to actually protect themselves beyond just, say, report to HR? Because what people don't realize, HR is employed by the organization. Their job is to defend the organization. It's not their job to make sure you're happy, right? So if we could share that, and then if anybody wants to add a quick, and then I think we want to open up for questions from the audience.
Yeah, I'll go really quick. So much great learning here. So I think a lot of it goes back to, you mentioned about the DNA of the leadership, right? One of the things I think about, it's not about policies, it's not about rules, it's not about regulations because of everything everybody talks about today. Excuse me. But I think about it, how do you handle this, or how do anybody from a leader right through the organization? As I think about it, we have to start thinking about behind every face is a story, and that's what I heard here today. I didn't know any of your stories other than what I read, and we often forget, excuse me, that we are all emotional, living human beings that have an upbringing, experiences that are so diverse and so different. And in that diversity, to somebody's point earlier, is strength, is great strength. In entrepreneurship, there are scientific studies, peer-reviewed, that state that diverse teams always outperform homogeneous teams. So I would just say behind every face is a story, if we can remember that. And then the other thing, I've talked to Carlos a little bit about this before, make sure when we're communicating with each other, often we take a stance before we tell our story. If we would only listen to other people's stories and try to not sympathize, but to empathize. Nobody wants sympathy, but to understand where people come from, I think would be a much better world for solving some of these very systemic problems that aren't going to go away overnight.
Can I jump in? Because I do want to talk about the gender dynamics. I mean, I think it's real, and it's real quick, too. When you go to work, what's the mission? Not the stated mission of the organization. When you go to work, get the job done. And for me, get it done well, right? So how do you align with other people at your job to get the job done? If you look at how you align, then you need to look at why are we aligning, why are we coming together? Too often what I see is connections made in workplaces that's not based on getting the job done. It's based on how much I like you. It's based on how you talk to me. And we kind of shun the people who actually, if we align with this person that we don't like how they talk, we could get more done. Like, it's not a popularity contest. Like, I work at a public institution and we have very lofty goals. If I want to get the work done, I don't care that, whenever we talk, you say some stuff that put me off. What can I get out of you in this moment for us to get the work done? How can we put all that other stuff aside? Like, sometimes we get, caught by the pretty face. Does that work in marriage? I mean, you can't just go for the pretty face. You got to go for the folks that can get work done. And that's how I think the dynamics of gender and all these other things can be mitigated. Because I'm coming to you to get this job done, not necessarily put you in a certain position to do anything else. I just want to do the work.
So as I mentioned earlier, I've done a tremendous amount of research. My background, I do a lot of data analyzation, and what I have learned in my profession is that 100% of the students that I'm doing research on, 100% of them, 100% are people.
Yep.
100% of my clients are people. 100% of teachers are people. 100% of the people that I interact with every single day are people. So if we're not in the business of people, we're in the wrong business.
Come on.
So, and that's for, it goes, and I have to regularly remind myself when you're constantly working with numbers. But with that being said, and I want to touch on that why real quick. When people, I do believe that that's an insecurity thing. I think that when you are empowered with the work, so when I walk in the room, I'm usually the expert. So when somebody tells me why, I genuinely don't think that they know. So I'll tell them, this is why. This is the reason why we're going to do a linear regression. It gives you way more points when we're looking at the indicators. You're going to be able to look at like 5 different things as opposed to if we use like a t-test. So I always tell them because I always, feel like I am, the expert in the room. But going back to your point about, and the question, what do? You have to tell stories. So every opportunity that I get, going back to the people thing, you tell your story, and you will find out that there is way more that they'll find out, because you already know, I've been black all my life.
Really?
All my life.
Go ahead.
But they will. And a person.
Mind blown, right?
But they'll find out that there's way more similarities. When I do presentations, I always tell stories about my kids. I always tell stories about different interactions I have. And each person in that room can identify with that. And when people start identifying with you as a person, I'm not going to say they stop identifying with your color, but they start identifying a lot better. And I wish we could go to work and just get the job done, but we do have to teach our people that, unfortunately, people are still going to be people. So you got to teach them how to interact, because I wish that we just got selected by what was in our brains. But the fact that we all dressed here today, the way we came in here today, means that we're not.
So we appreciate. Can we give them a hand, please? This has been great. We continue doing this on. Thank you so much. We might do a part 2. This actual podcast will be up, so we'll have this information up in a couple months or so. We'll let people know, what the community know. If you register for this event, we'll send an email blast out so you know when it's up there as well. We want to go for maybe 1 or 2 questions. We got room?
Yeah, if we
If
can.
anybody has a question or two, we'll answer them as bite-sized as we can, because we got a second panel. We got food. You're free to eat if you want to eat, and if you got to take off, that's fine. But we got another panel with some great panelists as well. So if we got a question or two.
I saw a question from right
Okay.
here.
All right.
All right. Your name
Let us
is?
know if it's specifically towards anyone or if it's just an open question.
It's just an open question. My name is Willetta Frederick. However, I'm Melanie. We grew up together.
Let us sing, y'all.
A little bit. So my question is, how do you handle on your job? I work with children. I work for the Board of Education. However, how do you handle being the strong one, but not coming off like the angry black woman?
Well,
The black woman is.
go ahead. I'll let you go.
You were.
I mean, I'll say this real quick. As long as you share your expertise, people will believe you. If you don't tell them that I am an expert, this is my field. It's not a lot of people who can mess with this area. But just telling them your expertise. This is my background. I've been doing this for 20 years. I did this for, and I hate that we constantly have to legitimize our capability, and that's very frustrating. But if you tell people, they'll believe you. And I mean, and even if you ain't got it yet, fake it till you make it, because you got to get that respect.
Also, prayer. Ask God how to let you show it. And actions speak louder than words. So just show them what you do. Do what you do. Know that you know what you're doing. Have the confidence in yourself. It's going to exude from you. You won't even have to say anything. They're going to look at you when you enter the room like, nah, she got this. We're not going to mess with her. And then you don't have to be the angry black woman. You're the woman who knows what she's doing.
Isaiah Frederick, I'd be interested in knowing one or some of the panel's interpretation of being the bigger person.
I can chime in on that one. I'm gonna come back in this stage. So professionally, right? Because again, I think we all are leaders and experts. I'm a topic expert in 4 different disciplines. So I think showing up as the bigger person is, number one, my trick is always practice empathy. I don't know what's happening in your life. So I have 2 rules, empathy, and I always assume the best, right? So no matter how you show up, I listen for the truth in your words, because the truth is the truth, right? So this happened one time when we had my team, and we did with a group. So our group, we worked with a group of maybe 30, 31 entrepreneurs. In the room was about $60 million of revenue, right? This lady wrote scathing reviews. The language just wasn't the language. Everyone got, upset. I said, stop. Is there anything truth in what we read? Let's focus on that. Let's focus on that, because that truth can impact someone else. I can't worry about what style you have or don't have, right? And I don't know what's going on in your life, and I don't know if your kids made you angry this morning, and I have to assume it's never going to be personal to me. And then from my spiritual perspective, I just got to feel sorry for you. But ultimately, I'm going to rise above it, because I still want to deliver. Is this making sense to some? And that's how I typically will show. Even if someone here is angry, I don't know what's going on in your life, but I'm extremely confident in who I am. And I'm confident in the way I show up and the way I conduct myself. And then I'm also open to feedback all the time, right? So that allows me, so I can show up. This actually happened, Lawson, I'm sorry. I got pulled in by my director and said, hey, this person that reports to you says that you're intimidating. I said, okay, what are you going to do? I said, nothing. I said, she's intimidated. I'm not intimidating. You get what I'm saying? So it was, I understand your perspective. Now, there's something I said, did, by all means, let me know. But if it's my shared presence, there's nothing I can do about this, right? And I understand it's uncommon to see a man that looks like me never bow his head, right? So I'll listen. If there's something that I can address, if it's something to me, I'm open to feedback. I'm open to, you said this, and cool. But the truth is the truth, and the truth is always, not to get super spiritual, set you free. You know what I mean? All right. So I think we have time for one last question, Los.
One more. Yep.
And then we want people to eat.
Thank y'all so much.
I'm getting my steps in. Come on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Antoinette. This question is for Mr. Reddick. How are you affected by DEI as for the policy goals for hiring? Could you explain that a little bit more?
How am I personally impacted by DEI or HR?
Is it going to be more difficult now for minorities to get jobs?
Yes.
Answer that, James. Thank you.
Because I know we're short on time, and I can talk about it to you at length when we're eating. The short answer is yes, okay? The longer answer is it's always been. It's always been, right? And I'm not saying it always will be, but we have to confront the reality of what we're in right now. And it's tough. It's tough.
So we appreciate that. Some of the panelists do have to leave, but some of them may be here, and if you want to ask questions of them, get information, get their personal information, we'll share that on media and social media as well, the ways that you can actually get in contact with them. And again, I'm sure they'll be here. Those who will be here, you can grab their information. If they have to leave, you can contact one of us. We do have an email or any ways to connect to me. Have something else, James?
No.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been Black Dad. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. All of our panelists, look, man, this is dope. Like, I know some dope people. You know what I'm saying? This is really good. I really appreciate your time, your expertise, your information. My name is Carlos B. Spencer.
I'm Coach Rod, folks. Let's go, let's grow, let's get it.
You all be blessed. Thank y'all.
Let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it.